I think she is zooming in at some point.
She was at the first responder, rapid responder. Municipality side, okay, so she was probably. And bouncing.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
everybody ready? All right, so we're gonna call this meeting to order. This is the Town of Ulysses Comprehensive Plan Steering Committee meeting, Thursday, April 11th, 2024. We're gonna do roll call, so if we could each just go around and state your name and what committee you're on.
Carl Petrowski, comp plan and planning. Yes, some town plan.
Conservation Sustainability Advisory Committee and Clean Water Source Protection Plan. Chris Hansen, village person. Lead person.
Time to sell you.
This is what we made up.
I'm Ann Capetta. I am just a town, I'm on this.
Great.
Resident.
Rebecca Schneider, Planning Board and Water Committee. Could you hear that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Great.
Yes.
Hey,
I didn't have a roll.
We're just doing a little call.
Okay.
You want to do
Here.
Yeah, Diane Cohen, County Ulysses does. Great.
what's that?
Just wanted to add a brief section of the. That is that the farmers market that we talked about last month, having presidents at. Where that.
Okay, so you want to add that to the agenda?
I would please, because this is the last chance people are not having. this.
Okay, where should we add that?
Sign up myself.
So, let's do it.
Well, it might be old business, doesn't it? Other ball,
You want to do it as well?
either way.
Either way, I have a couple of things. But I was.
Okay,
However you want to do it.
let's put it, how about we?
It's about at the same time in the agenda anyway. So.
Yeah, let's just put it under next steps with Neil's items and then we'll make sure we talk about that. Thanks, Roxanne.
Great.
Anything else?
Just follow up sheets, requests, talking about the. Want to see if you want to step up to. Or.
Comments or suggestions for the agenda? Okay, so we need a motion to. Motion. All in favor? Okay. On. Oh. Yeah, okay, sorry, past minutes, so everybody get to see the. Minutes, okay. Any comments, additions, changes? Okay, Can we have a motion to accept the minutes?
Make a motion to accept.
Great. In favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Next is, on our agenda is privilege of the floor. This is where we open it to the public to, communicate with us on any topic that they feel is, that they'd like to bring up with us with, a 3-minute limit. We do have a couple people in the room, just wondering. You got 3 minutes, yeah.
I am interested in housing and maybe monthly, that aspect of this that I'm interested in and, I just wondered if anyone else is interested in.
Can I just introduce yourself? Because you
Oh.
people on the Zoom too.
Okay, sure. I live on Ferry City Road. Yeah. I just wondered if you guys have been talking about some sort of pod type, like any kind of arrangements other than single family homes. Yeah, what other people have done, other people living, sharing utilities, living a little closer, have a little community out in our rural area, so that smart sort of. I don't know if anyone has anything to say. I'd love to hear from you guys, if anyone is interested in that kind of. We don't really have anything in our zone right now. We played around with it the last innovation for. I but it didn't get it. And I don't know if that's good, hated it, or just, it was too hard, or too different. That's different, honestly, there's a lot of things like. Express.
Yeah, well, thank you for bringing that up and presenting that. I don't.
Say that we certainly have positives, you know. Absolutely. Certainly. Updates because of the sustainability related, sustainability very broadly, you know, state. Those are what you're talking about. So.
Because of the what that we have?
Sustainability is the chart, part of the charge is to
Oh, the
put
charge.
sustainability, considerations
Good, yeah.
specifically into the update. For the content, we have a grant from the Climate Smart Communities program to do that.
Very.
Someone's typing.
That's me.
Oh. Yeah,
My glasses.
I guess I would only add that we haven't really gotten that far in the discussion on really any topic because we're starting, but this is a great time to bring those topics to the table for us as a committee to consider and ideas. So thanks for bringing that to the group. Anyway.
Just to add to that, and I'd encourage you to come when we start having open houses and meetings and discussion points and so forth to keep coming so that those stay kind of in the train of thought for everybody. And kind of we can evaluate that as part of the comp plan.
And do we have a vehicle right now for accepting written comments?
We do.
Yeah, I did something online, there was a link in the last newsletter.
Okay,
Yeah.
Good.
because I think that's having stuff written down is helpful too.
Great. Thank you.
Maybe I was.
Yeah, great.
I'm Cameron Newhoff, I live on Jacksonville Road. Two sort of questions. One, is this the forum to discuss changing of place names? And two, what I guess similar to the previous question, sort of like what are the attitudes around like the Hamlet Center, which there's only one of, and like how sort of prominent that is in discussions. A lot was discussed in the previous comp plan, but sort of looking forward.
So and when you say Hamlet, you mean Jacksonville?
Yeah, because it's the only Hamlet Center that's sort of like its own zone entirely, so it's like. Are there other hamlets that you're interested in, or is like there a lot of focus on Jacksonville or any at all? Are we more concerned with like the rural development?
Concerned about everything to do with the town. All aspects of the town.
Great, okay.
There's some other like funky little historic
Yep.
hamlets.
Like Waterbury.
Glenwood.
And so like, do you feel like we should have more hamlets or?
No. Yeah, I guess, yeah, because it is like the singular hamlet center, because obviously Trumansburg is outside of the town's jurisdiction. In terms of like. Yeah, like. If there aren't other hamlet centers, like what makes Jacksonville like specifically like lions that, and you know, a hamlet center specifically, and then what sort of like attitudes of it.
I remember looking at like the county's plan and they were really interested in Jacksonville because it's on the transit routes and things like that. So I think they sort of had that pinned as a place that could develop more in terms of sustainability and things like that. So I don't, it's an interesting question about whether we look at other hamlets or.
Yeah. And again, I think like with the housing, we haven't gotten that deep into the conversation, but I think that's a great topic to bring again to the table so that we can be thinking about not just Jacksonville, which is obvious, but you know, others. Do you want to?
Potentially,
Yeah.
yeah,
And then the first part of your question was naming.
yeah,
Did you have a specific name to?
no,
Oh,
not specific,
okay.
I was just wondering if this is like the forum for it. If like during a comprehensive plan, if it's like common or relevant to discuss changing of place names. As an idea.
I don't think we've discussed that at all here. I don't know. Do you have any
I think it
thought on
would-
that?
Definitely be appropriate for them to be discussed as part of our comp plans and the meetings and the forums that we have. I think ultimately the decisions would be up to the town board,
Yeah, I
if
figured.
not the state, but.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think this could be definitely a forum for further discussions.
Great. Any other?
Well, but on the hamlet, so Jacksonville is obviously the largest, but there is Waterbury.
Is that zoned as a hamlet?
And it's its own designation.
But yeah,
There's only like maybe 20 properties, parcels that are part of that, but it's zoned differently and it has its own zoning regulations as well.
Okay, and it's not like Hamlet Center, it's not a Hamlet neighborhood.
It's Waterbury Hamlet zone, sort of
Oh, it's
attached.
Yeah, and I'm not necessarily saying, oh, you know, we should make all the Hamlets Hamlet Centers. I just was sort of wondering about the attitudes. Cause that's sort of like one of the only kind of like urban nodes that you could call it as like an urban node within the wider agricultural and rural residential communities. So it's just kind of like a really important spot there, and it's just approaches, but it's very early in the conversation. So.
No, and I think the 2009 comp plan did a lot of focus on Jacksonville, and I don't see that changing here. But again, we're still early, so. And we'll have lots of public input on what we focus on, but I highly doubt that's gonna change, and I feel like we're gonna be focused
And
in
just-
Jacksonville.
Like going to what Rose said about the county, like when we did the 2009 revision of the comp plan, the county reviews them obviously and gives us input and all, and they really, when we had the land use maps and all, they did not want more, what they were calling nodes at the time, along 96, because their idea was to not have a lot of nodal areas, and so Jacksonville was the one that they also were quite focused on in their thinking. And obviously, the county doesn't have land use authority over us, but they give recommendations, and they have a whole planning department, and they're putting their bigger picture, transportation and other planning in it, and so they were pretty strong on thinking of developing that as a more of a center. So that's part of the reason that it is the way it is right now in our zoning.
Thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else? All right, so we are moving on to item number 5 on our agenda, which is old business items, and the first item under 5A is RFQ submissions review. So how do we want to guide this conversation? Is that where do we start and where do we go?
So, hopefully, did everyone have a chance to take a look at both submissions? And I'm presuming most were able to also see Carl's. He's the only one that I saw gave anything thorough, and then we got
Rebecca
from
sent in
Rebecca.
this afternoon.
So I guess we can start there, if that makes sense. And then we can talk about the process for next week.
So do we want to start with one group and discuss, do we have items for discussion for each group, or are we just gonna group by group and I don't know
How about using
Strategy for that.
Carl's as a, no, he did, I thought you did a great breakdown of what was required, of what we wanted the applicants stated in the RFQ and how they responded to that. And whether or not committee members feel, or how you guys feel the response was. We're not rating them right now, obviously, but just how you feel they responded in their proposal.
That's what I can't see. Can't sign in.
so it seems like we could do this one of two ways. We could go by each group and through each of these items on Carl's spreadsheet, cost breakdown. It's not really laid out that way.
And
Or
I,
we could go by
Jasmine,
topic. Go ahead.
I like to hear the broader, so we could tackle it from details at the detail level, but to me, there was a bigger perspective to the two of them. They were very different in terms of what they kind of presented. And I'll be curious to, I mean, to me, the one was way more kind of Ulysses relevant than the other. So I'll explain what I mean by that, but I'd be interested to hear if other people felt the same way. It wasn't about the details. It was really about, I mean, CRRC was very much kind of urban centric, and I can give you evidence of that. Whereas MRBC was really talking about our particular town's characteristics and making sure rural attitudes and agriculture and the natural resources were a main key focus to build around, whereas the other one didn't. To me, that was so striking that it almost made the CRRC, even though they're very professional, obviously very experienced in Tompkins County and all, I felt like they didn't really cue in on who we are. So for me, that was overriding everything. Did anybody else get that sense?
I mean, the first sentence of MRBs talks about agricultural and
Yep, MRB is the one I thought, same thing. It was in their cover letter, in their.
natural
report.
resources and everything,
Yep.
like what we actually value.
Yep,
CFP definitely covered a lot of it, but yeah, I agree, Rebecca, it just, that first sentence regarding the agricultural stood out to me in MRBs.
yeah, I actually felt like it was reflecting their expertise and where they came from, because they've all done urban planning, downtown planning, waterfront. They've done historic preservation. 2 or 3 of them had directors of historic preservation. And in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, you're going to tackle this whole thing as if this were Ithaca, and we're going to end up with more sprawl if you're just looking at economic development and growth. Whereas the other ones said, no, we really need to, protect rural character and agricultural. They did mention soils, and which is a key piece. So they really reflected 2 very different kind of perspectives that I thought was striking. I think there's some good questions around that you could ask to see if maybe they just, almost gave us if CRRC kind of gave us, oh, here's our normal kind of feedback, but they should have really tweaked it to be more tailored to us. And I didn't feel like it was. That's my take home. That's why before you get into details of what costs what and everything, I was just curious that did anybody, Liz, you apparently picked up on it too.
Yeah, I did. I don't know about anybody else.
I guess that's kind of interesting because not that I had like the complete opposite feeling, but like, I almost felt like MRB was like. Googling like, how do you respond to this? Like, I don't know, it just seemed too cut and paste, right? Like it said all the right things, but like, are you actually gonna do the right thing? I don't know. And then they're all from like a different area. I don't know. Were you able to look on the Ontario comprehensive plan and the other comprehensive plans that they did? Were
No,
you
I
able to-
haven't had a chance to do that.
Yeah, I don't know. I was like researching those. I don't know.
Did you look at them?
Yeah, I don't know. Again, I don't know. It's something about it just felt too like sterile to me. Where like, you know, like talking about this like little hamlet of Jacksonville and then like where I grew up, like I went to Ithaca schools and Ulysses is mostly Trumansburg schools. So there's just like a lot of little weirdness in the Ulysses town that I don't know that they might capture. I don't know. That was just my first impression.
MRB,
Yeah, I don't
Is
know.
that
It
what
just
you're
seemed too sterile to me. I don't know, but that's just my first impression. But it's good to know that you had a different.
There's a big difference between the two companies, right? I mean,
Yeah.
one is a small local and the other one's
Yeah.
gigantic.
Well, right, like
Like,
multiple states even, right? Yeah. So I guess maybe that's more, if they're more corporate, and then that's what I don't know. Maybe that's what I was feeling, I guess.
How big is MRB?
They've worked with the town before, right?
Yes.
they're the engineering firm that use.
They're engineer, yeah.
For water
For
districts.
water, yeah.
The water district,
Right.
yeah.
Okay. Other comments, discussion, Rebecca, is there anything else about your review today? Cause I know it came in a little late. I didn't get to
Oh,
see
yeah, I
it,
did not.
so I don't know if there's something in particular you want to share with the
Um,
group.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And it was mainly that point that, I mean, based on how they described themselves and what they wrote that they would focus on, I thought it really was the CRRC was really too urban oriented and wasn't going to really pick up on the important things that our town values. So, which I thought was a big oversight. I listed 3 questions I would ask them to try and get at, like, have they dealt with agricultural areas and how do you protect those? Like, do they deal with clustering? Do they, how would they deal with something like housing, like affordable housing, but in a balanced way, so we don't give up agricultural land for that? So I have some questions that might help them to reveal that they are paying attention to us more. Again, just based on what was written, I felt like MRB was more in tune with what we are. That's all. That's my points.
And I liked your questions, Rebecca, and I think we can add those to that whiteboard.
They're on there.
Okay, perfect.
Oh, you did.
Yeah, just.
Thank you.
Okay. Other discussion? I don't know what sort of things, do you want to accomplish with this conversation? What's our objective?
At the end of the day, we need to, so the question should be consistent between both.
Right.
And some of those questions are going to be grant based that Michelle's working on as far as compliance with the grant that we're working with. So we have an hour for each group or each firm. 15 minutes is the first 15 minutes is geared towards their presentation. And the remaining 45 is Q&A. So we have to be judicious on the questions that we do ask and the time allotted for them. So if we can't come to a consensus tonight on the questions, that we ask, we can kind of, I guess, go through email, or since that's probably the one that we can ensure that everyone has access to and is working correctly for everybody. And then go from there. But yeah, I like Rebecca's questions. I think some of the initial ones that I put down there should be self-evident on their submission, like your experience working on a comp plan. But committee members may want to just ask that question.
Well, it's kind of a due diligence side of it. It's my past experience, but somebody's given me who they work for and that get their permission to actually contact whoever they dealt with, like the three different comp plans, and just ask the people that they worked with, how were they as a company to deal with? How responsive were they? Did they, you know, provide what they said they would in a timely manner? And that's kind of my approach from a business standpoint, would be to just specifically, there's three different comp plans that MRB did. Now, the group from downtown in Ithaca, I don't really, you know, they've been relatively newly put together. I don't know, there are a lot of you have lived here I'm a newbie to the town, and I've only been here 3 years, so I don't have any past experience of dealing with them. You know, whether you're in your professional lives, you've had to deal with parts and pieces of these folks. And because I didn't know how you would go about asking them different projects, you know, like the commons area and this sort of stuff, you know, they've been involved with all this for forever. But I couldn't really see a specific set of questions to see how they would respond. Although the fact that a couple of them there stayed in their positions for 10 to 15 years, which would have went through several different mayors and regimes, they must have been at least been relatively willing to work with whoever the local government was, or I think they would have been changed out before that. As kind of my evaluation, that they must be at least somewhat amenable to work with.
Well, they would have examples also of their work. We would have to see some of the examples of their work.
So we're trying to come up, we want to identify all the questions that we want to have present in our interview. Do we have like a scoring process and rubric and?
There is a draft that Michelle has that we're gonna fine tune once I get that all, someone else will touch base again with her tomorrow on that.
And so before those meetings next week, that scoring would there be some part of the scoring process that would happen before those meetings next week?
I would think it's probably best to do the interviews and then do a debrief, either immediately after or at the following meeting.
Okay, and are we scoring all together, or are we all scoring individually and comparing?
I believe it's how I'm used to is individually, and then we compile everything.
Usually the spreadsheet that she sets up. We've done this for consultants for the trail project and a couple different things we're doing for ARPA funding right now too. There'll be like a metric, and then each of us goes through and grades them how we want to, and then they'll get all pulled together for a collective assessment.
And that'll happen after the meeting next week.
On the meeting, I just have a question. Are we all gonna ask questions, or is gonna be one person asking questions? Because it would be better if one person asks questions, then all of us get involved at the same time.
Or assign questions to people to ask.
You could do it that way too.
I was gonna ask if the committee wanted to do moderator, facilitator, or, you know, and having all that sussed out, send out the process. Like, just as an FYI, this will be a meeting, but it's the only thing that we're doing. And when I touch base with Nate, our town legal, it'll be an executive session, so it's basically closed doors. His suggestion and also Michelle's suggestion, there was a question of if we can record this. Was you can, but suggested not to, because then that becomes documentation that's subject to disclosure. And last little bit is when it comes to that time, please take notes. We won't have Molly. She's got other obligations. So please take your own notes.
Can you tell us the time and dates?
Yeah, so next Thursday, the 18th, 3:45. We're starting with MRV. And it should be wrapped up by 4:45. We have a 15-minute break between that and CRC, which starts at 5.
Do we know if everybody who is represented on here is going to be in person next
I
week?
don't know if the entire team will be in person, but they all said at least one of their team members will be in person.
Yeah,
I raised my
question.
hand.
Go ahead. Yeah, sorry, I'm like.
I just know
Hey,
that.
Paul,
I
okay,
was trying
try-
not to just talk because I do that too. but-
That's okay.
No, I just wanted to ask, it seems like, we probably don't have them honed down enough today, or maybe we can. But we should have a defined number of questions, it seems like to me, because, you know, that spread the scope of what we'd like to know about, not just, you know, a lot of technical detail things, but some bigger picture stuff, and decide on a number of questions, because we have, you know, what, an hour for each one. And so you want to be able to maybe have a little more back and forth if we want to on some of them. So I just was thinking maybe we should define the number of questions, and then we can hone it down to the coverage.
I agree.
I mean, we might want to deviate a little, but like if we have 30 questions, it's
Yeah,
too many.
yeah,
You know?
right. So how do we decide on which questions? Right now?
Or how many, maybe just pick,
Okay.
sort of try to pick a number of questions and then think about what.
Yeah, does anyone have
Is
any
another approach
ideas of
maybe?
how many questions is a good number of questions for 1 hour?
Well, wait,
Or 45 minutes?
right, because they're doing a presentation that's 15 minutes.
Right, so then we have like a half.
We
an
should have
hour.
some consistent questions that we're gonna ask both groups, right? So how many?
Well, you figure each answer is gonna be about 10 minutes.
Maybe.
Then it's only 3 questions, because we only got.
Could be
half
5
an hour.
minutes, yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, it
I'd
depends
say
on how
probably
much
5 to 10
detail.
minutes per question.
Yeah, it depends on how
There
much
might be
detail
some,
they're gonna
yeah.
give us.
Mhm.
So you figure about 10 minutes a question.
So that's 3 questions,
Yeah, but maybe come up with like 5 solid questions.
right?
Yeah, I think 5 would.
Yeah,
Yeah, because not everything will take 10 minutes
No,
for them to
yeah.
answer. So if we had 5 to 8 questions, does that seem like a good number?
So Michelle has questions about contract that we also have to fit into this time? Or is there a way where we can take this time to do like these questions to get down to the bones of the comp plan, and then she can follow up with each company on those
Yeah.
contract type questions?
Well, that can be done afterwards. That's not, wouldn't concern us. That concerns the town board.
Yeah.
Right?
Mhm.
Right, so that wouldn't really be in our questions at all.
I mean, I just want to make sure, because I don't know if she was planning on being in attendance too.
I got the feeling that she wasn't. I asked her, but I didn't.
Okay,
But again, I can follow up with her next time. I think that's a good idea. As long as we're not scoring them on compliance with the grant at all. So that's
Right.
one thing I need to suss out.
I mean, if it's something we want to focus on, like a sustainability question, I think
Yeah.
that goes both ways. That covers the contract, the grant, and kind of the scope of the comp plan. I don't think if there were like exceptions to the contracts or like that kind of stuff, I think could be handled on a phone call between Michelle, yourself, maybe one of us, and the consultants.
do we have the copy of the final contract? What's required? It's in here in this SharePoint thing that.
Nobody can get to.
It is in there somewhere, the contract, okay, I'll look for it. Now that I could actually read things in there. Yeah, I completely agree. I think it would not be a great use of our time to just sit there and listen to
Mhm.
details about how you would adhere to the contract requirements. I think we can make that work if we need, as we need to. That's part of working with them on what they're doing, making sure we get what we need.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't really have time to work on a good wording of question
Mhm.
yet, sorry, but I think there definitely should be one that relates to sustainability and incorporation of that and how they view that as something that they would do. And we can pull a little bit of the language out of the grant or the Climate Smart Communities sort of charge there. I mean, I can try and work on that and send it by email. I have just not had the time this week yet, sorry.
I
But
think
I'd
so.
like to see at least one of those
Yeah,
questions have to do with that. I'd like to
down
see
that.
one of them have to do with the sort of rural agricultural, aspect of the town and what they see as
Yeah.
just challenges, ways to get at that. I think it's a huge challenge to get everybody in this town talking about that and in the public meetings especially. In creative and useful ways. Housing, again, I think what Joe brought up is a really good one. There's a lot of challenges with that now.
Yeah.
And how that jives with the rest of the vision. So I think those are important things to think creatively about this time around.
I think, yeah, I agree. I think sustainability, ag, housing should be kind of 3 topics of questions, specific question we can work through. I like what we have here, but they could be tweaks of what's been proposed on the brainstorming page. I think a question about public engagement is going to be critical because we need people to come out and help us to develop this plan. We're not just the 8 or 10 of us to develop it. And then I think time, I don't know, maybe, I'm trying to think of like topics.
Yeah, I mean, I guess going back to
Schedule.
Yeah, the timeline and also
Yeah.
how they feel the best to interact with us. Like, do they feel like they would come to every one of our meetings?
Right.
Probably not, or like periodic, like, I think that kind of the way that they want to structure the interaction with us. And then, the public input meetings would be useful to hear.
Yeah, like MRV said that they were gonna come to have 2 meetings with the town every month and then come to our steering committee every month.
But that's like a
But-
lot that we're
Yeah,
paying for,
like a
right?
lot.
And do we
Yeah.
need that? And why
Yeah.
do they think we need that? That would
Yeah.
be good to hear.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess maybe more of like a detailed, I don't know, scenario of public engagement, like how to get like isolated pockets, like what they've used or what ideas. I mean, not just like, oh, we're gonna have meetings or we're gonna do paper flyer, I don't know, something. Are we providing them with an outline for their presentation of what we want them to say?
That's
Or do we
usually
not
on
do
them. I think that's up to them to show what
We just leave that.
what they
open.
want to highlight to us.
Yeah. What
Yeah.
their understanding of what we want is, that
Right.
would be reflected there.
Right. The other question I think, and I try to figure out how to do this, but Rebecca, you had a question about wetlands. And the DEC is currently in the process of changing the regulations.
Right.
And I wouldn't mind asking some type of question to see how hopefully they're not watching this, but like how up to speed they are on some of the regulation changes that are out there, because if starting next year and then again in 2028, there's gonna be a lot more wetlands that aren't considered DEC wetlands now that will be.
Yep.
So have massive impacts on development.
I think that's great. They seem to be, the CRRC folk do seem to be like, we're totally on top of state regulations. And Tompkins County definitely took a lead on coming up with the planning for all the wetlands. That's the one we currently use in our planning committee. So I'll be surprised if they're not on top of that, but it's worth asking MRB as well. So I think, it depends. You only get 4 or 5 questions. I'm not sure that's the top one, but I'm into wetlands, so sure, I think it's a great idea.
Or it might be just a bigger one in terms of natural resources.
Yeah.
And
I just want to make sure they're on top of the regulations changes.
yeah. I thought CRRC's section on that was pretty detailed. And I actually had a similar
Yeah.
reaction to yours, Ty, on a lot of the things that they highlighted. The
Okay.
presentation will be very interesting because one's a really big firm and one's not, and so I guess just we could see how it seems to feel as a fit for us.
Yeah. Well, it's important for us to know our priorities before we have those
Yeah,
conversations.
yeah.
So we
Right, so
We
that's
know
what
what
we're,
we want.
that's what we're trying to get at, that's what we're trying to get at, and
That would
the
be
answers we get from them.
Yeah. Okay, so I think we've said, somewhere between 5 and 8 questions, for that meeting, or do we need to decide here whether there's a facilitator or who that facilitator would be? And maybe a limit on the, like, when we ask questions, knowing, okay, we really actually want to hear these answers to 8 questions, so let's tell them, we want you to keep your answers to 4 minutes, you know, if you can. And so we can get through all of our questions, so they each get asked the same number of questions.
I like the idea, maybe Liz said it, of just, you know, having different people ask
Assign
the
questions.
question or answer. One of you guys said it, having different people ask the questions,
Yeah,
just so that, you know, they hear other voices and it's not so formal as just one person talking to them.
yeah, once we know our questions, we could just
Divide them up.
Yeah.
Or who, if someone particularly wants to
assign.
ask
Yeah.
that one or explore
You can
that
take
one.
council.
I don't.
Okay, never mind, you won't.
Oh, yeah, I
You
guess
can
that's a good question. How many of us are gonna be here? Yeah, how many people are gonna be here for that?
I'm embarrassed to say, my husband bought tickets for Bruce Springsteen. So
Ah,
I thought I was
that's
gonna be
awesome.
there. So I said I was free and available to make everything, but I'm not.
Allison.
You can ask him to come here.
so just, so wait, can we do it hands again on who can be here? So we have 5,
Rebecca, you can't, or
Caitlin can be
Caitlin.
here.
I
Okay.
can't be, I have to run a webinar. I'll be running a webinar during that time period.
And Allison said she could be here.
Oh, good, Allison be here. Okay. I apologize that I cannot be here. I could try to show up as soon as I can, but I have a family medical matter that I need to be driving someone to. So. I'm aware.
Understand.
So, yeah. So that's not negotiable. And then, so those 2 interviews will happen and then there'll be a meeting immediately after to debrief.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
So we can't
Well, we don't have that meeting
record
scheduled.
something that's in executive session? Is that what?
Oh, May is the
you
debrief.
said?
I don't think so.
Unless we want to schedule another meeting.
Okay, I thought you had said earlier. I thought I must have misheard you. Okay, sorry, Roxanne.
No, I was just clarifying that it's been determined that we can't record something in executive session.
You can't, so Nate's and Michelle's recommendation is to not record. You can record it. So we can legally record it. It then becomes a record though of the town, which then can be subject to FOIA. So that's, and then
Even if it's in executive session.
that's what I got from Nate. And then the other thing is, if the committee does want to move forward and record, we should still ask them because they may not want to be recorded.
Right.
I've never been in an interview that was recorded,
Yeah.
I have.
but
Um,
with that said. I think even if I think we'd have to definitely ask. We cannot record without their authorization,
Yeah.
yeah,
but I'm not sure.
I mean, prior to
If
them
we need
arriving
to,
too. right?
Yeah.
Okay,
I
I
was
will
just
say-
because a lot of people can't. I'm just
Yeah.
can't be there.
I will say that the one I was in on, which was for a professional situation for a national organization, it was actually really helpful to have the recording, to go back and do the scoring.
But you do have to have permission.
Oh, yeah, we had to do that, yeah, but we didn't have this situation where then it's public or whatever, which that makes it maybe complicated.
So I've been in comp plan projects where the consultants have presented in public. So I don't think, I mean, my inclination would be that if there's any desire to have a recording, I don't see any problem with it being a public meeting personally. That doesn't mean you necessarily open it up to the public in the room. But there's nothing wrong with the public seeing who's applying, essentially applying for work with the town. There's nothing secretive about that.
And we're not
So-
talking,
No.
We're not talking proprietary information. So it is, I was just saying from a a practice standpoint, it's not unheard of to do these presentations in public, is my only point. So I think if we wanted to record it, and make it available, because quite honestly, I think the town board members might be very interested in watching this, because ultimately the decision to go into contract is going to be done by the town board. So there's value there also.
How do we make that decision?
Can you reach out and ask if they mind?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm assuming with the discussion here that folks think that's valuable.
Okay. What else?
So what the timing for these questions?
Yeah.
We can't be waiting till 2:45 on Thursday to be
Why
selected.
not?
Because we need deadlines.
Let's put a deadline. When does everyone want to see the questions, or how do we decide on the questions? Can we get a draft of the questions and then decide on the questions?
Yeah.
Who's drafting the questions?
I heard several good comments from several members. If they would like to take the lead on some of that, and then if no one else wants to tackle the other ones, I can process it. But I thought both Rebecca, Roxanne, and Liz had some great topics.
Is there a way, just thinking about like how to vote on these questions and decide? Like, that looks like for those of us that can get into the brainstorming thing,
Hey, I just got in.
there's a like. So can you vote by giving like pick 5 and you give 5 thumbs up?
Let's see if I can like.
I don't know how to vote for these otherwise. Unless you pull them into an Excel
Oh.
spreadsheet.
Oh, I can put a heart on.
I can do it through a form
Okay.
similar to the timesheet.
Okay,
Okay.
that's fine.
Is
Yes,
that
I
what
see
you
your-
want? You want?
That's,
us to
I was
put
just
a heart
trying to
on
think
it?
of something.
Or you could have them under the topics, like if we're sure we want one sustainability, one ag, one housing. If people have more than one that they've thrown out there, then, yeah,
Okay,
you could.
it's like I was a whiteboard. And then,
There's a brainstorm.
Who have the question?
okay,
Oh, yeah,
Not
and
that
it's
it's-
in. All right, well, before you start, let's bring everybody together. All right,
I have a question.
go ahead.
So we're gonna ask these questions when they're here. If we submit them beforehand, so they are able to compile all that stuff to answer us. Or do you want to do it cold while they're here?
Yeah, that was kind of what I was alluding to earlier, like, are we providing them with like an outline of what we want to hear from them? But I think,
But if
The
we,
group
if
kinda
we
said no to
submit
that.
the questions to them, they would be able to give us more information when they come here. Instead of giving them just a cold answer.
But we don't have,
let's discuss.
do we really have time for that? And to give it to them fairly in enough time, I don't know.
No, I don't think so.
I feel like maybe if it's part of the conversation here. They give us their quiz, I don't know, I just don't. think
Okay,
we're
well,
gonna have them-
so one opinion is maybe it's
Right.
good to just like us have, you know.
I just don't know that we're
timing.
gonna have enough time to have the questions honed down and get them to them.
Yeah, we'd have to be willing to put those together, Dan.
Really.
Just a thought, it seems like we have two very, it's, the good news is we have two very professional and capable proposals. They're different, right? Like where they're coming from, one has this much more local, but the other one has worked a lot with this locality. So I think like, I have a comfort level that the hard decision is gonna be between two good organizations. I'm interested, I'm not gonna be able to be there, but I'm interested in like a process question. And I don't know, like, because they're not making the decisions, we are, right? The community makes the decision. So what's their process to get things to be as inclusive as possible? Like how involved do they see themselves in that as leaders or facilitators, or I don't know. That's more my interest. And I think this is such a knowledgeable group. We're gonna choose well when we get there.
that's a good question.
Thank you.
What does it look like, to them?
Yeah.
Mind kind of sussing that out and
Yeah.
sending an email.
Write
I
that down.
tried.
I'm giving 3 presentations in the next 4 days, and I'm a little, and I have to be at Trumansburg Rotary at 6:30.
I just, what she
All
just
right,
said. I
so
just
Liz
gave
just
Thank
typed
you,
it
Liz.
into
Thank
her.
you.
So
Yeah,
can we like
thank you.
number the ones we have here? And because I know not everybody can get in here and I wasn't able to until just now. I don't know, some magical thing that just happened. So I don't know what if it's being here. But if we could number these, and maybe it could be sent, I don't know if you can screenshot or whatever, just send it as an email also, so that those who cannot get in to see it can at least give their input.
Thank you, thank you.
We
Yeah.
want to be inclusive for those of us with. Sorry, that's my. So back to this other question though, which was Mo's, which is, do we provide them with, and with the questions ahead of time? Roxanne basically felt like maybe we're not gonna have time to do that. Does anyone have any other comment on that, so we can decide whether or not we want to do that?
Consultant people, do you usually get them?
I
ahead
would
of
do
time?
it. If it were me, like I would, because my objective is to get answers to those questions. And so I would actually, not that a surprise question couldn't come up or be important, but if I'm interviewing somebody, I want them to know what I want to know so that they're ready for the
That's
conversation, you know?
I mean, we can give the basic question.
Yeah.
And then we can have our own questions afterwards, but just so that they can answer and have their detail when they answer their questions. Otherwise, it's a cold question and they might not have the paperwork or whatever, or examples that they want to show us.
I've never been given the questions when we go for interviews.
Hmm.
But I don't think, I mean, I said we were trying to trick them, but I don't really mean that. None of these questions are gonna be anything that's
Right.
outside of the scope of the
Right.
proposals to begin with.
Yeah.
So, because we want to focus, we want to get into the weeds of the proposal, we want to get into the weeds of how they're gonna do this.
Mm.
So, I think asking blind questions, I mean, they're gonna be asked blind questions when they go to the public or the town boards to respond or anything like that, so it's kind of seeing how they react on the spot. I mean, I don't think any of the questions that we're gonna be asking are gonna be looking for like cite what happened this day at this, like, it's more hypothetical, of, like, what do you expect? What are your anticipated timing? What is your anticipation for how to ensure we're engaging everybody in the public in the town? Not just those who come to our meetings. So I'm not against it, if we feel like we can come up with some questions quickly, but I agree, I'm not sure how much I can commit to having questions by
Yeah.
Tuesday.
Well, if, let's say 3 basic questions that they
Yeah.
at least can have some
Thanks for
information and some detail. You know, how are they going to approach the community? Well, most of them said how they're gonna approach the community. Or
Yeah.
maybe they have more detail than how they're gonna do it.
Yeah.
And,
No,
I mean, both of them will meet with the committee, but how long, you know, I mean, if we want them to come in extra because we had other questions, will they do that? Or is it just gonna be a schedule that they perform? I mean, they said every 2 weeks they're gonna come in and talk to whoever. And then once a month, they're gonna come and talk to us, but what happens if we wanna see them? Every 2 weeks for the first month or so, so we can get some answers.
So, I don't know how we make this decision as a group. I am totally flexible, like whatever the group thinks is the right thing to do is fine with me. I do think trying to come up with the 8 questions before Tuesday might be a challenge. And maybe it's even hard to just come up with an agenda or outline of the basics. But I don't know how we come up with, how we make that decision, but I do just want to point out it's 6:25. It's a little time check, just a little time check, just so we know where we're at. So from here, our list of things is to come up with the questions. We have sort of a list. Are you gonna, like, how are we gonna whittle this down? We're all gonna go vote?
I'll reach out to Rebecca, Roxanne, Diane, and Liz on questions, and if anyone else wants to volunteer right now, let me know. Otherwise, I'll just keep it to that, and then we'll suss out the 8 questions. I'll put that out on the various things, including email, and then put out a form for people to rate. And then also come up with like a cheat sheet for the meeting. Once, if we have a moderator, facilitator, whatever, and then we can go question by question and who's gonna do what, so that it's hopefully very quite succinct.
Yeah.
Which, and would you be able to, unless somebody else feels comfortable, figure out a question for housing?
Yes.
Do you think she's,
Oh, yes, you should, yes.
and then we can ask, but
Yeah,
I think if there's something
I think that's another
yeah.
you can
Like,
point
the
to.
issue that.
Yeah,
Sarah
I mean,
brought
I
up,
think that was
like-
an interesting
Like
question.
just
I'm glad
thinking
she brought it
about
up.
create a little bit
Mhm.
out of the box type
Right.
ideas. for-
Yeah.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, and I think it should be pretty basic, but how, actually, I think that should be a really open question to see what their ideas
Yeah, yeah.
are, you know,
It's
just,
just sort of try to draw out like whether they
But,
have.
yeah,
something.
yeah.
What about, because MRB is so big, do they, at what point do they commit to who's gonna be their lead person? And like, who's responsible for carrying through this work? Because it might be helpful to know who that would be in case there could be a real range of experience with that. And I don't know.
Didn't
know if
we
that
already
matters.
say that in the proposal?
Do they say it?
Find contact is gonna be.
They say who's doing the actual work?
Yeah, but if not, we can always.
Okay. All right, then, yeah.
Okay, so what else do we need to decide on this?
So we decide if there's a moderator, facilitator.
I mean, I think it would be a good idea to have a facilitator personally. Does
You're
anybody
the
here?
chair?
I
Oh, you're not
know,
gonna
I
be
mean, I'd
there,
love to
okay.
do it if I was
Well,
gonna
Linda's
be
the
here.
vice
but
chair.
how do you feel about facilitating that meeting and
It's fine,
introducing them and?
unless. I mean, if maybe one of us,
Yeah.
that's.
You guys can rock, paper, scissors. Okay.
I got a point here.
It's like flip a coin. Okay, so
the
we'll
idea of
either,
a committee member doing
Me
it,
too.
and we've got, you know, your expertise is there
The timekeeper.
I
Yeah,
can,
yeah.
okay, yeah, just keep me on track.
I think having a team approach to it is a really good idea, actually, for one of you to be like, okay, just keep the movement, keep it going, and the other one to be like, we're done with this question, and
We'll play good cop back.
yeah,
Yeah,
however
good
you
idea.
guys wanna have that unfold, but.
I'll get
You have to wear bad cop clothes.
You okay with that?
Yeah,
I think you'd be great in
That's-
that role. Okay. So Liz will facilitate that conversation with them. Niels will be backup and timekeeper and help keep things going. You're gonna help us get to the question point by what? Let's pick a time, date.
I think honestly, we need to do Monday.
Okay, so everybody check your email on Monday. There will be something there, okay? And
Because this is
This is
Thursday.
Thursday,
So,
so if we want to get them ahead of time, they probably should have them.
oh, are we giving, did we decide
and then we
that?
have to decide if we wanna do
I
that. So
thought
I
we-
think we're kind of like half and half, not really feeling strongly one way or another in this group, it doesn't seem like, so.
A Tuesday deadline can't hurt either way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we can ponder it. If it feels like you're gonna be reaching out to them and confirming a time and
The video.
whatever. Yeah, the video thing and, you know, here's our basic agenda. You're gonna have 15 minutes to present. We'll have 45 minutes for questions. The questions will be about, you know, you could provide some guidance if you want to. I don't know. Is that something we have to decide as a group and like vote on?
I mean, I guess you could just
I'm
say we had,
flexible either
you know,
way.
the committee had a particular interest in these topics when we had this discussion, but.
Yeah.
I
I
agree
think
with
that might
Liz.
be a good way to do
Maybe
it.
Yeah, I
throw
agree
some
with Liz that
topics
it's,
on it.
you know,
Yeah.
everything that we've identified is under the
They should.
rubric
It's
that
in
we wanted
there.
them to comment.
We're
on
not asking
anyway,
them to
so.
talk about something they haven't already talked about, so.
You
um,
just give them a little heads up on what we seem to be the most.
Are you
focused
okay with
on.
that?
Kind of our, what are, you know, the ideas that are most important to us, we'll just kind of list them out or whatever,
Yeah.
without specific questions to them, okay. Anything
So
else?
Tuesday, like early in the midday Tuesday, is that, did you say Tuesday?
Or did we say
Rose?
Monday? I think we're saying
Oh, I
Monday.
heard
So I'll.
Tuesday over here, sorry.
I'll distribute on Monday. And I'll give a deadline of response by Tuesday. How about that?
Mhm,
And if I don't hear
My
anything,
calendar.
I'm just gonna go with what I get.
mhm.
Okay.
Sounds good.
So the people who are drafting the questions, you want them by Tuesday or Monday?
Monday morning.
Monday morning, I don't know about.
Monday afternoon.
Yeah, maybe.
Will be tomorrow.
Oh, shoot. I don't have any
Um,
time tomorrow at all.
Okay, putting it on my calendar. So, there. Okay. Anything else on prepping for that? Interview. Okay. All right, so we are at 6:30. We have a few items on our next steps. Is that okay with everybody?
Yeah.
Gotta go.
I apologize.
All right, thanks for being
Thanks,
here.
bye.
Thanks, bye.
Everybody else okay to move forward? Let's try to do it in the next 10-15 minutes. Can we move it along? Okay. Okay, so our next, so we're done with that, if I can find our agenda. Lost.
Next steps.
Okay, we're done with number 5, on to number 6, which is next steps. We have multiple items, 1 from Roxanne and 3 from Niels. Do you want to start with Roxanne's question about Earth Day?
Sure, I just had a question about. I mean, we had a list of people who said that they possibly could be there if we had something for part of the time. And we didn't talk exact, Rebecca had said that she would make a poster. But,
After that on Monday, you guys,
Right.
it's about 30 by 30, and I'll have it printed out and to you guys by like Thursday.
right, so we'll have a poster and then like, what else do we want to have? Do we need a table? And, you know, we had talked about a box that you might put a form in, or, you know, I had, you know, Rebecca and I only chatted a little bit today, just catching up on this. And she brought up the poster, you know, maybe we could put like the vision statement from the 2009 one and just have a little question, you know, does this, you know, are there things here that you think we don't need, we do need, you know, and maybe just have a suggestion box or a big board that you put up post-its with push pins or whatever people think, do we have the supplies for that? You know, it's just stuff like that. Who's getting that together? I will be there, but I could sort of come by, but I'm supposed to be doing something else that day, so I can't do a lot of that. So our committee is.
So at the very, we don't have postcards yet or a mailer or anything. We'll have a poster. The information postcard, right?
Yeah,
Right,
we have
yeah.
those from the Midwest, which
Right.
is essentially the same.
From the Witch Fest?
Winter Fest.
Oh, but we still have some of those. So at the very least, we could have those. And that has a scan, like a QR code. Does that have the?
Secure code, we'll also have the listserv sign up sheet. But yeah, if we wanna have other stuff like a board where people can put pitch pen, you know, whatever,
Yeah.
let me know, cause we have stuff here that we can utilize.
Yeah. I kind of think that would be good. It's a little more, people can. you know, put
Interactive,
something there.
draws people in.
Like if it works
Maybe
off
games
of
or
the
stuff.
vision or something.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, but then we have to
Something
do
in-
something.
Yeah.
Well, we have to do something with it, obviously. We have to collect them and type them out or
Right.
something, but. You know,
Yeah.
that's
The
not
village.
impossible.
Yeah, at the village hall, they have, I think it's a waterfall. And they say like, what they like most about Trumansburg, obviously, it's the village.
Yeah,
But if we put the vision statement at the top and then people
Yeah.
can write in on the bottom.
yeah.
I don't know if the students, so there are several students, how many did you guys get?
I heard for.
4 students from the high school, citizens group,
Youth internship.
youth internship. Program that are willing to stand at the table and help out with this, so maybe there's, I don't know when you guys are meeting. But maybe Rachel can help them, that might be a good project for them to pull together.
Okay, can you do, who would ask them? Names.
I'll take.
And so
Yeah, nothing else.
before we had, Rose, you thought you could be there for some of it.
Yeah.
Carl, you thought.
Yeah, I've
Liz
got a.
Thought she'd be around some. Diane
lacrosse
said
game at
maybe.
noon to show up at, but whatever until like 11:30 or noon, I can, what time do we
It's
start?
earlier. Well, it's
10
10
to
to 2, but you know, we don't need, you know, people can just chip in. It's just kind of nice that people can talk to people in the community who are on this committee if they want to. You know, hopefully the weather will be okay and people will be there, but
Yeah.
we're making an
20th?
effort.
Yeah, next Saturday.
It's Saturday, the 20th. So anyway, but
Yeah, and I
think that's the farmer's market.
Right, and I had spoken to Kate, so we're gonna bring a table. We weren't gonna reserve one of the picnic tables that are there.
you have a table,
We're gonna bring a table and chairs for. if
Yeah,
people
we're
need to
having a
stand.
meeting after this one, so I didn't get that info
Yeah,
yet, but
no,
that's great.
I just talked to her.
Perfect.
So she knows we're coming.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll have a
So, yeah.
poster, we have a table,
I
Yeah,
can be there at 10.
we have postcards,
It's free.
postcards and maybe a
and then maybe we'll have a
big
thing.
thing to
Like
stick.
You can
on
get
or
JoJo
something.
food.
Yeah, food. I think there's gonna be some music. There's gonna be, you can clean, you know, a lot of people bring their kids and then go clean up a section of road that's very well orchestrated. Kate
Do
got
we
that
need
down.
to, or should
So,
we?
anyway.
Do we need to do outreach or marketing or something that we are going to be there for people to stop by? Like, is that something we wanna say, like? Well, as part of the celebration, you could also go talk to the comp plant, like, do we need to put it out?
Well, be on the website.
We could have
Town
Carissa
website.
mention it in the newsletter.
Yeah, she might be,
Right.
if we can get her a blurb by. Probably tomorrow at like 10, 11, because she starts putting the newsletter together pretty quickly. She's already gonna have a link to the website. Or the event,
Yeah.
so maybe there's something she can add too.
I normally, she asks for inclusions opinion, so we'll have that on the newsletter. We have a listserv of about 40 people, so I'll put it out there and we'll also put it on the website,
Okay.
Yeah,
So-
great.
Maybe she could put it on the
People the
Facebook page too.
Facebook, yeah.
Oh,
I'm not unsure who.
No, Korea person, she's the only one who can do it.
yeah, well, I think she put the little poster that we made for the event, so maybe she could put that again with another comment about
Yeah,
the comp plan there.
Where we'll be.
Cause that's like a visual that, you
Yeah.
know, will attract people to look.
Okay.
Anyway, that's great. Thank you. I hope that, you know, we get some good input there. It's another.
Thank you for that,
group
Roxanne.
doing-
Yeah.
We'll see.
Anything else
Fingers
on,
crossed.
anything else on Earth Day? Okay, Niels, you had a couple things for new or next steps?
So we have May 9th as the next agenda or meeting. Do we want to schedule June at this point?
So June, 4 weeks later would be June 6th.
Yeah,
Um. I could probably do that. I don't know, how does June 6th look for people?
Fine for me.
Do you think that will have, well, we will have a consultant by then, right? We should, so
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if, you know,
Maybe
it
I
makes
should,
sense to
Yeah, maybe.
see if we can meet with them as our meeting then, so.
Do we want to set it and see if they can do June 6th? And if they can't, then we'll change it.
I was gonna say, maybe I should backtrack. So we have May 9th is the next meeting. If the committee wants to do a debrief after the interviews, we should probably schedule that. If it's not gonna happen immediately after those interviews.
And so that would be different than May 9th.
Yes. So there's a 3-week gap between the interviews and May 9th.
So that.
I think if we can meet like the week of the 22nd.
Yeah. Because we
Then
should
we can
make a
get-
recommendation to the town board, right? And then the town board's meeting. would
We
be-
won't make it
No,
on April
for
23rd.
the 23rd, but then the next one would
It's
be
the
May
14th.
7th.
Do you want to try to do a week later, the
14th,
25th?
wow, yeah.
April 25th, a week later to debrief, or is that too far?
I'm sorry, so when was the next town board meeting?
In May, it's May 14th.
Okay, so as long as we do it before
But
that.
we're, yeah.
Which
so
we
the-
already are gonna meet, but I do think it might be worth, even if we just call in for a Zoom. The week of the 22nd to do a
Yeah.
debrief while it's still kind of fresh, and then that gives us each some time to do that rating matrix. So on the 9th, we can
Yeah,
wrap all this up and then provide the recommendation for the town board on the 14th.
And then if it is recorded, that still gives enough time for others to watch the.
Right, yeah. That's good.
So do you want to do a week later? So if the interview's on the 18th, do the meet on the 25th?
Caitlin, do you see any issues with that schedule kind of laying out so that the 14th, May 14th, we can bring this to the town board?
Yeah, I mean, so for the board packet, it would be, I'd like to have the materials done by the 8th. Right, I'd like to get submissions by the 8th. So it sounds like we could, you have a recommendation in place before May 8th, correct?
Well, our meeting is May 9th.
Right, and so,
So that would be.
yeah, I mean, if, I think having. So, and the reason I say that is because I typically finalize my packet on Thursday during the day. Because it goes to Carissa pretty early in the day, the next day. So the debrief is not going to be selecting somebody or making a recommendation. It's just a conversation.
Yeah, what are we doing in that debrief? So if we debrief a week later, what are we doing? So we're reviewing everything, we're watching the videos, we're using the matrix to score. We're gonna share that idea by the end of that meeting. Are we having a decision?
Good.
I guess we could, if you guys watch the video.
That's fairly clear, especially if we have a scoring matrix and we have a score in it and it's pretty clear, we can come up with a decision. We could have a decision by the end of the debrief. Does that solve that issue for Caitlin? Okay.
Well, if that seems reasonable to the committee, it would make it easier on my end. But if it's a huge encumbrance, then I can accommodate a later one. But if it is possible, it'd be great to have that done in advance, largely because the board, this is going to have a lot of materials for the board to review. And I'd like to be able to get it to them, potentially even on Thursday itself. So they have some extra time over the weekend to watch anything.
I think that's fine.
Yeah. Okay, so is the 25th good for people? April 25th? 5:30?
Yeah.
To 6:30? 5:30 to 7? Yeah.
Probably will end up to be 7.
I mean, there's only 2 applicants, so maybe we could do it in an hour.
Yeah, maybe the scoring matrix can be not too
If our matrix is,
incredibly intense, you know?
I mean, if our matrix is clear and our score is
Yeah,
clear.
no, but I mean,
30
the
minutes.
matrix itself could maybe not have, 35 things to fill out.
Yeah, let's have a matrix.
A simple matrix
Yeah, I have a
evaluation.
question.
25th.
So the
5:30.
25th, 5:30, we're reviewing debrief, right? Okay.
Yeah, and then
And we'll try to get it done in an hour.
we can talk on the 9th about how to present, because I'd imagine the town board would want to have somebody kind of discuss.
Okay, so interviews on the 18th, debrief on the 25th with a selection, and then the 9th, we have our meeting. Which will be
Regular meetings.
just our regular meeting. And at our debrief, are we determining at that moment who's gonna let the company know that we've selected?
You can't do
We
that
can't do
until
that.
the town board has.
The board has to do it.
So the steering committee here will be making the recommendations based off of all our
Okay,
discussions.
and we can't talk about it.
And then the town board will ultimately make the decision
On
at
the
that
8th.
point. On the 4th. That would be the earliest, would be the 14th.
The 14th.
If
Okay.
there's a lot of discussion, potentially could go, but the 28th, but I'd imagine
Yeah,
the
hopefully.
14th would be
I mean, it
fine.
would be nice if they could, just because then, it's gonna take a
Okay.
little bit to do the contract. And then-
And so when
Get
we meet on the
somebody up.
9th, we have a meeting on the 9th, we can't discuss who's been selected. Is that right?
Because we've only.
Because we're just recommending.
We're recommending.
We
Yeah.
can talk about it that we've recommended, but it just hasn't been.
There's no
Benefit.
official selection
Okay,
until
until
the
the
14th.
Okay.
By the town.
And then you want to pick a date in June. So now we're back to June.
Oh, we are doing.
Or no?
I think
Oh,
we
you
could
want to wait
put
until we have.
June 6th on.
Yes.
if it works for folks here, and then
Can change it.
if the selected consultant needs to,
We can change.
Change it,
Yeah, I won't be here the sixth, but that's fine. I'm not saying you shouldn't have a meeting,
I
because I
may not
can't
be
be
here
here.
either.
You won't be here.
Me either.
Oh, so well then, that's,
I'm just kidding.
oh, all right, well,
Let's put a question mark next to that and we'll try to get it aligned with the consultant. I think that makes sense. Let's not have a meeting without them after once they're selected.
I'll at least mark it as tentative, so some people. kind of like it.
Yeah, I think, once we have them picked, we have something that works for them. Okay,
Right.
anything else on that?
Not on that, but two other quick things. Hopefully. So the youth internship program will be wrapping up their stuff next week. Kind of similar to what we did with the last one. If there's one or two committee members that'd like to listen to their presentation. That will be on Wednesday, 24th at 7 o'clock. So let me know or let Ty know. We can coordinate with Rachel.
it was very informative when I listened in December.
And that's,
So wait, you're doing it as separate than our, because last time, right, did
We
they do
did it
the our,
afterwards.
Yeah, it
okay,
coincided really well with
okay.
their last meeting
Yeah.
with this.
Oh.
They came in person. You did a good job.
They present here, is that?
They did.
It's part of their program to multi better.
You send us an email about that.
I will. And then the last one I got is, I won't publicly shame members, but I will send an email regarding time, sorry. I will resend an email requesting time spent in the first quarter outside of committee meetings, because Michelle and I need to send that out in the next week for the grant.
Is Hester Prynne and the Scarlet Letter.
we're
I,
almost done.
Complaint.
This is the comp plan.
oh, it's so funny.
You can check.
We'll have the meeting down there. No, she's. Yeah, she's.
Could I ask Molly just to give the dates of the meetings? Like, cause I, just as a starting point, would be helpful for me, the person who hasn't turned in her hours. And do you need me to send it to Blixie or send it to you and you'll get it to, okay?
And you're not the only.
Really?
Like, so if 1 month you didn't really do anything, like, you're not expecting like 0 hours for a month or not?
If,
Or
so
you are.
for those members that haven't sent me anything, if they attended the meeting, I'm gonna at least clock that time, but it's anything else under
Okay.
meetings. Yeah.
So do you already know that I attended the meeting or do I need to write that down too?
We have that on,
Okay, so just any extra,
yes.
okay. I can handle that. I was out of the country.
Okay, so you're gonna send us another prompt for hours.
Only those. that I
Okay.
heard.
It's good to have reminders.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. Okay, anything else? Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Yeah.
Thanks, Mo.
Thanks, Rebecca. Thanks, Caitlin.
Yeah.
Those in favor?
Bye.
Okay.
So.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.